Ravel, with his friend Debussy, older friend, often considered an impressionist composer, but we could probably say post-impressionist, given those wondrous pieces from the Mother Goose Suite. The first one, the Pavane of the Sleeping Beauty in the Wood, and that pavane, of course, a dance genre that goes all the way back to Renaissance suites, and we heard Fauré doing something related quite earlier from here. At any rate, we had in that piece very pure classical form, very simple lines, quite divine. And then two more excerpts there. A good example of chinoiserie with the excerpt from the Princess of the Pagodas, pentatonic on the black notes of the piano until it wasn't. It was actually tetratonic when that French horn came in with the gong coming in such a wonderful way. And then finally, the dialogues between Beauty and the Beast. And this is way pre-Disney. And the deal is the Beauty is the clarinet and the Beast the contrabassoon. And to my mind, not quite rowdy and emphasized enough, either audibly or visually, in that otherwise pretty wonderful recording that we just took in. The initial part of that piece, each of the characters gets a solo, and then we tuned in for a duet, and then suddenly the Beast is transformed into the Prince, and that would be the contrabassoon line, suddenly an extremely high violin line, still quite beautifully chromatic, and then that exotic harmony at the end. Well, there's Ravel for you. Post-impressionist, as perhaps his student there, at least in his early experiences, Ralph vaughan Williams. Towards the end of Ravel's life, and it's not a long one, he has commissions to write two piano concerti. One, the Concerto in G, which is this jazz-influenced marvelous piece, and the other, equally marvelous, but in a different way, Concerto for the Left Hand. And this was commissioned by Paul Wittgenstein, whose brother, Ludwig Wittgenstein, was a renowned philosopher of the empiricist school. Paul, virtuoso pianist, got his right hand blown off in World War I. And so he went around commissioning many famous composers to do concerti for left hands. And this is maybe one of the earlier composers to whom he commissioned a work. As it turns out, Wittgenstein, this was a pattern of Wittgenstein. He wasn't too sure about the work initially. Sometimes he would reject works by other composers. Britten and Hindemith come to mind as having been similarly suspect, at least for a while. But Wittgenstein grew to really love this work, and it starts as dark and dangerous and ends in a kind of a rollicking way, and we'll just hear the conclusion. Speaking about conclusions, Ravel is not too long for this world. In fact, even before these pieces, his friends were noticing an increasing absent-mindedness and kind of something going wrong upstairs, and nobody really knows. Well, nobody really knows a number of things about Ravel. For years, as a matter of fact, there was a notion that he was asexual, and then there was a notion he was homosexual, and then recently it's been discovered he went to a lot of heterosexual brothels, so you never know. And you never know about his death either, which is this mysterious, was it some sort of aphasia, an advanced stage? But whatever it was, there he went. And we'll see a pupil of his, Gershwin, keep this in mind. Composers who die young of the brain. Whatever happened to Alma Mahler? Well, previous to her even meeting Gustav Mahler, she was, of course, Alma Maria Schindler at this point. She was chased around the theater studio by Max Buchart, her mentor. She has her first kiss from Gustav Klimt, the artist. She winds up having an affair with her music teacher, which would have been Zemlinsky. She decides that he is too ugly to marry and too Jewish. She's an anti-Semite, of course, and she marries another Jewish guy anyway, and that would be Gustav Mahler. They have a child together, Anna Mahler. She grows up actually to be a famous sculptress and does busts of her father and also Anton Webern, who is one of the new Viennese school composers, along with his teacher, Arnold Schoenberg. The other new Viennese school artiste composer is Alban Berg. She establishes a friendship with him. There's more to tell on that. After Mahler's death, you'd think she'd go back to Walter Gropius, but no, she has an affair with the expressionist artist Oskar Kokoschka, a crazy guy. They have this wild affair. They break up tumultuously. As a matter of fact, before they break up probably several times, but she finally gets rid of him. She encourages, Walter Gropius is already off in World War I, and she encourages Kokoschka to go off. Don't be a chicken, go off to war. And she knows that this guy is not capable of dealing with wartime. He's going to get killed. He doesn't get killed, as a matter of fact. Gropius comes home. She marries Gropius. They have a daughter, Manon. She grows up to be this angel. At last, Alma has her Aryan princess who dies at age 18 of childhood polio. Alban Berg writes her a memorial piece. We'll get to that later. She has another child, ultimately, and she realizes this ugly, deformed Jewish child again. And why? Because she is now, and this is again her racism, because this is the child, actually, of her new lover, which is Franz Werfel, the poet. And Gropius finds out about this and summarily divorces her. She continues her relationship with Werfel to the end of Werfel's life, which is quite a long time coming. Werfel's sister winds up having an affair with Alban Berg, and Alma makes sure that this happens. There's a great picture of Alma and Franz's sister and Alban tooling around in an open-top car in the early days. Meanwhile, Nazism is rising its ugly head, and Alma realizes she has to get out, particularly because of her half-Jewish daughter, Anna. They escape over the Pyrenees. Werfel is on tour at this time, a book tour or something, a movie. He eventually becomes also a Hollywood screenwriter. She escapes with Anna over the Pyrenees. Only the clothes on her back and the score to one of Bruckner's symphonies, which had been a gift to her from Bruckner to Alma's first husband, Gustav Mahler. She takes this precious score, she rescues it from the Nazis, and then what's she do? She's on the phone long distance trying to sell the score to raise money. Ultimately, it didn't happen. She eventually makes it to New York, to Los Angeles, where they all go, and she floats back and forth. And she lives until the time of the Beatles hitting America. She lives a solid 50 years after her husband. Unbelievable. She is a woman of some substance, shall we say, by her death. And there is even not only an article in Wikipedia about her, but there's an article entitled The Alma Problem. Because as it turns out, she was kind of like a former day occupant of the White House, in that she exaggerated, lied, always made things sound good vis-a-vis her, and often Mahler. And so scholars don't know what the heck to make of all of her memories. Bernstein et al. Oh, so what are we going to hear? We're going to hear one of her art songs, which is redolent of the world, not only Mahler, but of Alban Berg. Good stuff.
Schwarz
Kokoschka, so distraught was he over the loss of Alma as a lover, he commissions a life-size sex doll from an avant-garde puppeteer named Hermione Moose and proceeds to parade the doll around town in a carriage, taking her to the theater, or at least he hallucinated that. The doll eventually is destroyed in a wild party. The police were called. There were rumors of a decapitation. And Kokoschka was the only one of Alma's 4 principal lovers, whom she never married, kept in reasonable, regular contact over the course of her life, and who outlived her.